Welcome to the Phoenix Effect Podcast with Elle, Kristen, and Dennis. We are three narrative-trained therapists, and we will be interviewing storytellers from all walks of life. We will explore what people do to find belonging, purpose, and success. Listen in as we delve into the depths of the human experience. If you have a story you would like to tell, stay tuned to find out how to become a part of the show. Are you ready for a good story? Here we go. When I am with a Christian identifying client or a client raised in a Christian home, they often have deeply embodied that it is wrong and shameful to say things about their parents that could potentially put them in a negative light. They were raised on the 10 Commandments, the third of which is honor your mother and your father. There does seem to be a lot of confusion about what it means to honor one's parents. As children, it was often a verse used to control them. It was meant to shame them into compliance. It was meant to silence their voice. It was meant to instill fear of what would happen to them if they ever spoke out against. There were not just consequences on earth, there would be consequences with their souls and their relationship with God himself. A child then begins to conflate mom and dad's will with being able to be right with God. Honor and obedience are not the same thing. At no point is an adult called to obey their parents. In fact, adults are encouraged to have a healthy separation from their parents. Many times, what parents are telling their children was dishonoring was not dishonoring. It meant that parent did not like something that the child was doing and they wanted them to stop. It means the parent felt disrespected and they want to feel respected. It meant the parent wanted to instill some fear to have more control. Honoring your parents is a very spiritually abused verse. If this verse was ever used to control your behavior, you have been spiritually abused. This is not the only hesitation that comes up when my clients are asked to tell the truth about their experience growing up. There is true love and care. It can be hard to hold that parents are both good and bad. They are extremely loving at times and sacrificial. At other times, they are very, very self-centered. And they can portray their self-centeredness as them being good to their child. Here's what I mean. Let's say a parent overhears their child complaining to a friend about that parent. The parent feels disrespected, enraged, and embarrassed. They later confront the child about what they overheard, accusing the child of being dishonoring and grounding the child from speaking to this friend for a week so they learn their lesson. This parent has a lot of feelings about what they heard. They're responding to their feelings, not truly attuning to the heart of their child and trying to guide their child. To attune to their child would be first to manage their own feelings, to be able to come to their child later with curiosity. It could sound like, I overheard some things and I was wondering if there is something on your mind that you would like to talk about with me. Do we need to work anything out between us? How are you feeling? Perhaps there was an injury in the relationship the child needs a repair for. Perhaps a parent set a limit that felt unfair, and whether it was fair or isn't the point. The point is, can the parent attune to the child's feelings and help them feel seen, heard, understood? After that, if it's appropriate, the parent can set some guidelines on what would be ways to handle their feelings in the future, but it is not inherently wrong to talk about how they feel with a friend. My best guess is most parents do this with one another. We trash talk our kids all the time. It is a way to emotionally process. The parent's problem is not that they are not being honored. Their feelings are hurt. They are embarrassed. They feel exposed. They're trying to control the child by silencing the child. That is not loving the child. Loving the child after overhearing them speak about their hurts is an opportunity to engage them with love, kindness, curiosity, and connection. So what does it mean to honor a parent? We've gone over it is not obedience. It is not avoiding being honest and speaking what is true from your perspective. It is expressing who you are due to their failures and their goodness. Becoming the most authentic you, becoming the person you were meant to become, is honoring. Being honest about their failures and their successes, telling the truth, is honoring. Here's an example. Let's say as an adult, your mother calls and asks you and your partner and your children to come to Thanksgiving dinner. You've already talked with your partner and made plans for Thanksgiving. It is honoring to tell your mother thank you. You appreciate the invite, but you will not be able to come. This is honoring. You're putting your partner and your family before your family of origin. You're honoring your own values and integrity. This honors your parents. To agree to come to your parents' house after you had already made a different decision betrays your partner. It is not acting with integrity. It would be misaligned to come to your parents' house for no other reason than your mother wanted you to. If adults do not hear no's on a regular basis, they're at risk on becoming emotionally immature. The emotions that may come up in mom are not bad. They're just emotions that she may need to work through. This is good for her to be able to do. This is honoring. This is making a statement that you trust her to work through her own disappointment, that you trust her to respond with dignity and respect when she doesn't get what she wants. This is honoring. Here's one more example. Let's say you demonstrated a proclivity for math and science growing up, and your parents hoped you'd become a doctor. When it came time to choose a career path, you chose music. This is honoring your parents. You are becoming who you were meant to be, not a version of yourself that you altered to please them. Lastly, as children, we experience double reverse empathy for our parents, meaning children will feel more empathy for their parents in a situation than they do for themselves. This perspective keeps us safe as children to see our parents as good. That is survival. As adults, we have to own their complexity. Our parents were complex people. They had good parts, beautiful parts. Most parents love their children. They have blind spots, immaturity, and a propensity towards sin like the rest of us. As adults, we have to see our complexity too. We have to remember who we were as vulnerable children. Without acknowledging the truth of what has happened, we are bound to it. We will continue to react to it. We will harm our own children in very similar ways as we were harmed, even if we swear we won't. We have to look at it to grow. When we can tell the truth, when we can grow in our maturity, that is what actually honors our parents. And that's where we end today. We are so glad you joined us. We want to invite you to get involved in the show. First, be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. That way, you don't miss out on a future episode. If you're super curious, you can also find us on YouTube. Second, if you'd like to learn more about joining us and sharing your story, send us an email at phoenixeffectpodcast@gmail.com. That's phoenixeffectpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening. This podcast and website represents the opinions of Elizabeth Key, Kristen Boskel-John, and Dennis Roberts, and their guests to the show and website. The content here should not be taken as medical or psychological advice. This content is for informational purposes only, and because each person is so unique, please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions. The views and opinions expressed in the podcast and website are our own and do not represent that of our places of work. While we make every effort to ensure that the information we are sharing is accurate, we welcome any comments, suggestions, or correction of errors. No guarantee is given regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on the podcast or website. In no way does listening, reading, emailing, or interacting on social media with our content establish a therapist-client relationship. Why do we need growth and change to happen? Well, the experiences our body had during our formative years were stored in an implicit memory. Do you find yourself continuing to say yes and be overcommitted? Do you find yourself immediately saying no and missing out on experiences, relationships, and life giving things because you're afraid of being uncomfortable?